Hey Emma,
Yes, Madeline.
did you hear about the upcoming movie about a time-traveling archaeologist trying to get back his lost love?
No, I didn't. What is that movie called?
Braiders of the Lost Ark. Hello, and welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
I just couldn't get it out of my head.
I wasn't really listening, but did you adjust it at all to be Braiders, or did you just give the plot of the movie?
He's time-traveling to get his lost love.
Oh, I see. I understand now. I was thinking about the actual physical act of braiding.
No. That would be funny. But I think that would have taken a little bit more setup than I was willing to lay down the foundation for in the opening 30 seconds of our episode.
That's fair.
And in order to time travel, he has to join a hair salon and learn the ancient art of the French braid.
I'd watch that movie.
I don't think it would be a good film.
I'd watch that movie.
Okay, well,
doesn't matter if it's not good. I'd watch it.
We'll work it into the crossover at the end of the episode.
Okay.
Hairstyling. It's nothing to do with braid, but that's fine.
That's fine.
Well, hey, thanks for tuning in. I'm one of your hosts, Madelyn.
I'm your other host, Emma. I think we said that already.
Did we? No,
yeah.
We didn't.
Yeah, we did.
Hey, I'm your host, Madelyn.
Or maybe we didn't. I don't know. We're stuck in a time
Madelyn.
loop right now, basically.
I'm your host, Madelyn. It's too bad we can't rewind and find out in real time.
I know. If only time had a rewind function, you know?
If only. If only. Oh, man.
Speaking of which.
So this week, our old game is Braid. And our new game, we'll save for the middle of the episode. If you've been listening to the show, you'll know it. If not, you're just going to have to wait and see and get ready for the spiciest of hot takes. If only you could fast forward right now. Oh, wait, you can.
Yeah. You're not listening to this in live stereo.
Of course you are. It's 12:03 on Sunday.
Oh, that's true. It is.
Anyway, folks, that brings us to our old game this week, which would not have qualified as this is so fascinating to me. It would not have qualified as an old game when we started the show.
Yeah.
I love the creep of time.
Yep. The steadily growing drip of the hourglass.
Those are the days of our lives. I love how time passes at a linear rate.
But yeah, Braid is a little platform puzzle indie game that came out in August of 2008.
For Xbox.
Yes, for Xbox.
And then it trickled out to the PS3 and Windows over the next year and a half or so.
Yes.
So it was developed by Number None Studios.
By which we mean it was developed by Jonathan Blow.
Yes.
The one-man show. Jonathan Blow also made The Witness, which we talked about pretty early on in the show.
Yeah, as I was researching Braid, I was sort of thinking to myself, I feel like we have talked about this game before. At least in passing.
Yeah. Braid is pretty different from The Witness, though.
I know that. I don't mean to say that it's the same game. I just mean that I think that we must have talked about Braid, actual Braid, as part of the Witness episode. Mm-hmm. Again, if only I could rewind time to find out. Or rewind time to have me listen to our episode before recording this to find out. Oops. But I was researching it, and usually, folks, when I'm researching old games, it's oh, I have never heard of this before. Let's learn about a game. But I was researching this, and I was this sounds really familiar. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's because I have gained any knowledge in my time podcasting, because that would be unrealistic. I think it's because we must have talked about it, or I must have researched it in conjunction with The Witness.
When it came out, too, it was it was the indie darling of the year, of which there always is, one, right? At least.
Just one.
It's usually, one. Last year it was Celeste, right?
Right.
Like, there were other indie games that came out that people liked, but Celeste was, like, the chosen one. And in 2008, 2009, Braid was the chosen one.
And Braid, in a lot of ways, was one of the first indie chosen ones, as I was reading about a lot.
Yeah.
Right? It was really a big, in the history of indie games, really, really significant. For a number of reasons, not the least of which, that Jonathan Blow, like, literally pretty much made the game himself on his own money.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
Pretty sure he, like, had to sell his house and stuff.
That's insane.
Yeah. Spent a long time making it, as far as I am aware.
I mean, it's just... You really have to have some real confidence in yourself to be at the point where, like, no, this indie video game that I'm making is so good that I'm gonna sell my house to pay for it. I mean, it paid off for him, but, like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, enough of talking around the game. Let's talk a little bit about the game before we dive any more off topic here. So Braid, like Emma said, it's a platformer. As explained in sort of the one-sentence synopsis, it sounds like pretty standard platforming stuff, right? We've got this guy named Tim, and he's trying to rescue a princess from a monster by platforming and stomping on monsters, and the sort of gimmick in this game is that in each sort of world, you have a different ability to manipulate time. So you can run time backwards and forwards to get through the platforming in ways that you wouldn't be able to if time just ran forwards.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that functions changes from world to world. There are some worlds where there are objects that can't manipulate time, and there are some worlds where, the last world, it runs in reverse to begin with, and you turn it forward.
Yeah. There's one where the way you're moving on screen makes time go forward or backward.
So, in that sort of synopsis, it's like, oh, okay, like Mario clone, right?
Yeah.
Mario clone with just, like, a little extra spice.
Yeah.
But Braid is super well known and sort of, very up the talk of this alley, I feel like, in terms of gameplay storytelling, which is maybe, I sort of feel like the context in which we discussed it before.
Probably.
Well known for how it integrates the gameplay mechanics with sort of the actual story of the game. So spoilers for a quite short indie game that came out over 10 years ago.
Yeah. Unfortunately, There's not really any way to talk about this game completely without talking about the twist. So.
Right. Because otherwise it's just not to say it's boring, right? Like, it's a good game, it's a well-made game, but there's nothing particularly unique to discuss about it.
Mm-hmm.
Without talking about, like Emma says, the twist. Although even by just saying that there's a twist, we have spoiled people.
I think that's dumb. I think that amount of spoilerness, being like, oh, there's a twist in the story. Gosh, plot developments happen. Like, okay. Calm down.
I know, but referring to it as a twist, like, it's one thing to say there are plot developments. Like, who would ever say that in describing a game? I played the game and the plot developed. That's a Capcom video.
And yet, someone on the internet would think of that as a spoiler.
I know.
They're like, oh, what if I thought that it stayed in the same status quo as the first 5 minutes the whole time? Be like, well, then you're just, that sucks for you. That's what it is. But anyway, real spoilers. We will actually be saying what happens in the game. So if you want to go play it real quick, you probably can.
It's pretty quick, right? It's a pretty short game.
As far as I know, yeah. I mean, I don't think it's not like an hour long, but it's pretty bite-sized as far as games these days go, especially.
Well, I just saw a lot of sort of the critical recaps were like, this is a great game, but it costs too much.
Yeah, well.
Which, is not a unique take by any means, but still. So go ahead, Emma. Spoil the people who are still here.
Well, the initial thing is it really makes it feel like a real Mario clone. as Tim is like searching for a princess who's been snatched by a monster, right? So each level you're trying to get back to the princess so that you can rescue her. But in I guess in the last level, the time goes backwards, and it's discovered that the princess is actually running from Tim, and the traps that you've been evading are ones that she's set, and Tim himself is the monster that he's trying to save the princess from, basically.
And it's interesting. Something I've been trying to parse from this is Jonathan Blow has talked a lot about this game as sort of like critiquing contemporary trends in video games. It's like, I don't know. Like, it's a cool twist.
I mean, I guess it would just, this is 2008, right?
I know.
So first of all, put your mind back there. And
Cool.
Second, I mean, it's pretty, like, just on its surface level, it's a pretty clear critique of the damsel in distress trope, which games still rely on a whole bunch today.
Sure. No, absolutely. I get that. But also, like, really, like, Mario is what you're gonna go after? Like, that's your critique of games in 2008?
Mario, that's so ubiquitous, though. Like, every platformer is, like, a Mario clone in some way. And, like, every game like that needs to have something that's, like, go to the right. And a lot of them are like, here's a pretty lady. She's on the right. You know?
Sure. He is aware that Mario didn't invent the damsel in distress, right?
Yeah, but it's about video games. He doesn't have to go back to, like, ancient worlds and write a manuscript in Old English in order to critique the damsel in distress trope.
I
right?
know.
It's specifically tied to video games. It's not, like, everything in the world.
I know. I was reading a bunch of sort of his quotes on the game and how he sort of refuses to talk about what the game is actually about, right? He's, like, very, very reticent to, like, he's like, oh, there's multiple ways to interpret it, which, fine, that's cool, whatever. And it's about, direct quote here, something big and subtle and resists being looked at directly. It's like, okay, tool. Like, what a pretentious way to say it's, like, making fun of Princess Peach.
I'm not saying he's not a little bit pretentious. I think it's more like the fact that he is, like, adding a twist to traditional game structures, too. It's like, hey, you can take these, you don't just have to keep reiterating these things, you can add stuff to it.
Yeah. I guess it's interesting that you brought up Celeste, right? Which is also a platformer.
Yeah. It's a different kind than Mario, though.
Absolutely. Not saying it's Mario in any way, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you bring up Celeste, just because, I don't know, I guess in 2008 it is a little bit revolutionary to be like, you were the anti-hero all along.
I mean, it is, kind of.
I know, but again, I just feel like this has been a theme on the podcast lately, of, like, it's weird to think about that as, like, especially, you know, like, in a lot of media, honestly, right? It's, like, around the same time that, you know, Breaking Bad is, and Mad Men and sort of all that stuff is, like, really starting to bubble, right?
Sure, but, I mean, video game storytelling and TV storytelling are at very different stages in their life cycle.
No, definitely. I'm just saying, I'm not critiquing here exactly. I'm just saying it's weird to think about, like, having an anti-hero as your hero, or flipping it around and being like, you were evil all along, being kind of revolutionary, because it feels a little trite now. It's like, okay, like, you were the monster, like, okay, great. It's interesting to put myself back in those shoes.
Yeah. I mean, this, like, 2008 and, like, to, like, 2012, there was, like, I can think of a couple of games that are very much, like, trying to deconstruct the power fantasy of games, right? Like, because that's sort of what this is like, you're playing Mario, and you're like, wow, look at me, I'm jumping on enemies, I'm rescuing the princess, and, like, part of the satisfaction is that, like, you feel powerful and you're doing things that are cool and whatever. So when you realize that, like, all these powerful things you've been doing are actually bad things, then that sort of challenges, like, that power fantasy that video games often try to offer. And not that there's really too much wrong with, like, the power fantasy in theory, but there was, at least, and there still is, a large amount of them. Just because, like, the fact that it's interactive, like, provides that space for a power fantasy, all right? Because that it's actually you doing it, right? You're not just, like, watching some action movie guy be cool. You are the action movie guy being cool, right? But then you're like, but wait, what if you're the bad guy? And then you have to think about that power fantasy.
Or you reset your Xbox, put in Grand Theft Auto, and just don't think about it.
I mean, yes, that's also true. And I'm sure people do that, but that's a little bit of a fatalistic way to look at media.
I know, I'm kidding. Sort of. Just as always, gotta note, makes Wikipedia's greatest games of all time list.
Wikipedia has a greatest games of all time list?
Yeah.
Like, from who? Just the world at large?
I think it's, like, games that are, like, often considered the greatest games of all time.
Okay.
I'll click on it right now. Yeah, it's considered by critics as one of the greatest video games of all time. Here's the page titled, List of Video Games Considered the Best. The criteria is that games here are included on at least 6 separate best greatest of all time lists from different reliable publications.
Yeah. I do see Braid credited a lot as sort of the start of, like, the rise of indie gaming.
Yeah.
So, again, if we're looking at best video games of all time from a historically significant standpoint, it is certainly a historically significant video game from that perspective.
Yeah. Also from 2008, just to get sort of a, vibe for the other best games that are happening at this time, we have Dead Space, Fallout 3, Grand Theft Auto 4, Persona 4, and Spelunky. Don't know what Spelunky is, but that's
it's a game.
Thanks.
You go see
Did actually know that much, believe
it's a
it or not.
game where you're spelunking.
Yeah.
It has a big speedrun community, I think. That's all I know about it.
Very cool. Anyway, yeah. It makes the Wikipedia list, so that's good enough for me.
Yeah, Wikipedia is the true source.
Truly definitive.
Honestly, really, like, if depending on what you're looking at, it's really not that bad, right?
No, Wikipedia is very reliable.
Yeah. I mean, if you're writing a paper, like,
page.
just go to Wikipedia, find the citations, and then there you go, right?
It's like really if you're writing a paper on anything scientific, like, that requires any amount of specialization, probably no one is going to go out of their way to, like, vandalize that page.
Yeah.
So. It's also, at least was for a time, the highest rated title on Xbox Live. Raid. So, truly got some good reviews. Loved by the Xbox community. Ugh.
What was the blast for?
The Xbox community.
What is this? What there's next? There's an Xbox community. What?
Whatever. I'm PlayStation Master Race.
Okay. Fair enough.
PS. For life. Get it? It's like PS4 life.
Yes, I understand.
For life.
I understand.
Yeah, I don't know. Braid is interesting, but it's like, I feel like it's hard to talk about because, like, there's one interesting twist, and so it's sort of interesting to talk about from that perspective, but I feel like this kind of twist has been so done since then that it's hard to even look back.
Well, I think that's a little silly. I think that's a silly viewpoint because you can do that with any you can do that with any media. It's like, oh man, look at all the people that have copied this. Now I can't watch the original version of it because I hate it. You know?
Well, I don't mean that. I just mean that it's kind of impossible to have the same experience. I mean, duh on one level, but whatever, hear me out. Like, it's hard to have the same experience if I played this now for the first time. I mean, one, I've been spoiled, but I'll stop doing little sidebars here. I just wouldn't have the same reaction because the trope is so much more common. That's all. It's an interesting thing about looking back at historic art and how things play differently because they just aren't as shocking anymore.
I do think there's something to be said that, like, while I think twists are clever and I think that they can help in the product of the time there is, I do think that media that doesn't rely on twists generally lasts longer.
Yeah, well, of course.
Sense.
I mean, that's.
I mean, you know, there's mysteries and stuff like that. That doesn't entirely hold true, but I think there's a difference between like a mystery novel and like something that's like, bam, like at the end, you know.
Well, that's why none of the true crime things ever really quite resolve anything, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna be making serial documentaries until everyone involved is old and gray.
Yeah.
But hey, look, Braid made a lot of money.
Yeah.
So,
good for him because he spent a lot of money on it.
I mean, it made a lot of money relative to the money he spent on it, even.
I know.
Which just must be a wild experience. I don't know. I can't imagine. Here we go. Here's a depressing quote of the week. I can't imagine having something really hit it big. You know?
I mean, I don't think anyone can. You know, it's always good when you're working on something to, like, tell yourself that. Like, you're like, oh, this is going to be good. Because, whatever, you visualize something and it's more likely to happen or whatever. Whatever the psychology is there. But,
nice.
like,
good
when you're not, like...
motivational speaking, Emma. Keep it up.
When you're not, like, actively working on something, it's hard to be like, oh, man, one day I'm going to write a novel and it's going to sell billions of copies. Or one day I'm going to make my passion project video game and make millions of dollars, you know? Like, it just, maybe some people do have that mindset, but I don't find it easy to have that mindset.
Well, Emma, one day, Talk This is going to hit it super big, and we're going to have billions of followers.
I mean, yeah, of course we are.
Billions.
Billions. Literally billions. We'll have to get, like, people to, like, people who speak other languages to, like, redo the episodes so that everybody can listen to them.
Right. They're going to have to be performers, though. They're going to have to play the role of. They can't just, like, dub.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I mean, they have to dub, but they will be good dub actors.
Nice. Well, dream big. Dream big. Okay, do I dare open the can of worms on our new game?
Let's go. Let's open it.
All right, Emma, you do the honors. Tell the people what our new game is this week.
Octopath Traveler.
Does Emma have thoughts on this game?
Listen, okay. I know that when I was playing it this summer, I was very negative. And you know what? Like, I have fondness for it, right? I played like 50 hours of it, so if I had really, really despised it, I would have probably put it down after like 10 or so. But yeah, Octopath Traveler is just something that it's just, they made a choice like at the beginning of development that just entirely doomed it for the rest of its life.
What was that?
And that was the choice to split everything across 8 different stories that don't interact with each other whatsoever.
But Emma, the name of the game is Octopath Traveler.
That's why I said that they made it at the beginning of development and then they couldn't go back. Actually, I shared this after I made my case study, but I saw another video that was looking at Octopath Traveler. And their suggestion for fixing it, while still keeping the 8 protagonists, is that you can choose anyone to start with, like you can before, but then they make pairs, and then they make quartets, and then they all come together as 8.
But do you get to choose?
It's like you get to choose the character you start with, and then like it goes from there. And like you can still flash back and play like the chapter 1 of everybody's story, but then from chapter 2 onwards, like, there should be, like, interactions with the stories. Like, if they're going to the same place anyway, like, those stories should tie into each other. Or if someone has, like, a chapter 3 that somebody else was a chapter 2 for, you should, like, feel the impact of that character's chapter 2 in the chapter 3. And basically, like, keep like, the 8 beginnings, right? Like, make each one sort of feel like a protagonist. But then from there, you should be, like, having characters, like, interact with each other. So, like, basically the idea was, like, chapter 1s are just one character, chapter 2s are 2 characters, chapter 3s are 4 characters together, and then the chapter 4 is everybody coming together for some big boss that, like, interacts with their stories. And I thought that was a really good idea of still, like, sort of keeping the freedom and sort of the concept of it while also fixing, like, my major issues with it, which were that, like, nobody knew each other, even though they were traveling together.
But Emma, that sounds like it would take a lot more work.
I know. But the thing is, would it? I don't know. They wrote 8 kind of crappy stories. Is it really... Maybe it is harder to write, like, one more cohesive, good story than 8 crappy stories, but it's not that much harder, is it?
You tell me.
I don't know. But, okay, so Octopath Traveler, as we said, is a JRPG. You have 8 characters. You can start with any one, then you pick them up. They each have 4 chapters in a story. None of the stories interact with each other. Yeah, that's about it. A couple of the characters have sort of interesting stories, but it's just sort of hard to follow when you have to do 7 other chapters in between, like, the continuation of their story. It just, most of them feel like either nothing is happening or it's just a little rushed.
Give me a one-line introduction to every character.
Therian, he's the thief that doesn't want friends, which is why he's traveling with you. Alphen, he's the apothecary who wants to go around the world helping people, but finds his morals challenged. Tressa wants to go around and make it big as a merchant. And she disapproves of people stealing things, which is why she's traveling with Therian. Sorry. It's just
go on.
Primrose is a dancer who has a very dark storyline compared to everybody else's. Because she's, like, searching for the men who killed her father, and she also, like, works as a prostitute in the first story. So that's lovely. Ophelia is a cleric who's traveling around doing, like, the traditional pilgrimage where she lights all the fires in different towns so that, like, they'll be blessed or whatever. Ulbrich is a warrior who used to be, like, a big shot dude for a king, but he failed because his friend betrayed him. So now he's, like, living in the mountains, but he's gone in search of that friend. There's others. Cyrus is a scholar who just really wants to find a book, okay? He just really needs this book, and he needs to find it, and no one will get in his way. And then there's Hannet, who is a huntress who speaks a sort of weird approximation of Old English, and is trying to find her master after he, like, went on a hunt gone badly. And those are the 8.
Was that 8? I
That was
lost
8.
track.
I think it was 8. If I missed anybody, that just said something about the game. But I think I said 4 guys and 4 girls, so I think we're good.
Did you ever finish it?
No, I didn't finish it.
You gonna finish it?
Maybe one day, but there's a lot of games that I want to play now that are not Octopath Traveler. I got through, like, 6 chapter 3s.
You played 50 hours and you're not even at all, like, chapter 4?
No.
What is this?
Here's the problem, okay? Here's the real problem. It wouldn't be as much of a chore to play if experience was shared between your party. But it's not. If someone's not in your party, they don't get experience. But their chapters still have the same, like, level recommendation. So you have to be like constantly switching people out, and then like nobody is powerful enough except for your protagonist. The first person you choose cannot be switched out of your party, which means like I chose Therian the thief first, and he is like in my playthrough like 15 levels ahead of everybody else.
Yikes.
So like it's a lot, like the battles by the end, just because I didn't want to grind, was a lot of like everybody's dead except for Therian, who's just tanking it.
Well,
so it's not a lot of fun.
Go Therian.
Yeah. The battle system is fun in theory. Like it's based off Bravely Default system, which is another JRPG. I think from the same, or at least there's people on the team who made that game, where like you store up power, and then you can use that power to like power up your attacks on a turn. So like if you wait 3 turns in between using, I think it's burst, your burst, like you can get like a supercharged attack basically. But like so basically you have to find the weakness, break the guard of the person, and then like launch your super attacks. So it's sort of a soothing like battle system of like it keeps you on your toes, but you get into a good rhythm of it. Sort of similar to how I feel like Persona on harder difficulties is. But like the fact that it's so hard to keep your party at a good level without grinding is a little bit, takes away from it a little bit, I think. Just has some issues. Just has a couple of issues.
It's interesting to me that you describe the game as soothing when I would never have guessed that anything about this game is soothing for you.
I like the fights. I like the fights up until I started doing Chapter 3 bosses. And Chapter 3 bosses were just utterly miserable. But, yeah. So, there's that. And the music is really good. Like, the battle themes, I could just, like, so many good violins. I could just listen to them all day. So there's another bonus.
Nothing like violins to accompany your violence.
Pretty good.
Yeah, thanks.
It's Octopath is one of the best-selling titles for the Switch, though, probably because it was one of like the first exclusives after like Breath of the Wild and Mario came out.
Yeah, that definitely, you have to imagine, really played in its favor. Because, man, there are still just not a lot of, like, really high-profile Switch games.
Yeah.
There's a ton of indies, but...
I mean, like, it has stuff, and I'm sure there are some people who are very, like, pro-Nintendo and really like the Switch and will buy the game on the Switch as opposed to other systems. But if it generally, with some exceptions, if it's on the PlayStation 4, I'm gonna buy it on the PlayStation 4. Like, I bought Vesperia for the Switch, but that was mostly because it was coming out close to Kingdom Hearts 3, and I didn't want to keep swapping the discs out.
You lazy.
I know. That was basically it. But I haven't bought anything for the Switch that is, like, also on the PlayStation 4.
Well, there you go, folks. Some commercial insight into the minds of a gamer girl.
Yeah.
I didn't research Octopath Traveler very much because I figured you would just rant about it the whole time. I was like, I can slack on this one. Like, Emma's got this one covered.
I feel like I've already been talking for like 20 minutes about
You haven't.
Okay.
Tell us more. Spill the tea.
I don't know why it frustrates me so much. Like, it's one of those cases, and that generally falls into like one of two camps, where it's like almost like you can see the ways it could have been really good, but it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like Final Fantasy 15 is like that for me too, but I don't get nearly as annoyed about it, and I don't know why. Perhaps I think it's just because Final Fantasy 15 has like enough inherent charm to it that, like, even though I can see the ways that it could have been like amazing, that like, the general experience of playing it is engaging enough that I don't get annoyed with it constantly. Whereas with Octopath, it's just not engaging enough to distract me from the ways it could be better.
Brutal. Put that on the game sleeve. It's not engaging enough to distract
Quote
me
me.
from the ways it could have been better. Talk this podcast.
You told me that they're making a mobile prequel, though, right? Did you look into that at all? I haven't been looking at it. Like, is it an actual prequel? Like, story-wise? Or is it just, like, the same style and they're saying that it's set beforehand?
The title of it on Polygon is Octopath Traveler Prequel coming to mobile. It's called Octopath Traveler Champion of the Continent. Right now it's Japan only.
Interesting.
It's going to retain the visual style, the 2D HD visual style of the Switch, but will focus on a new group of warriors exploring the continent of Orstera.
I don't even know if that's the continent that Octopath is on.
Yeah. It's coming out in Japan
okay.
later this year, so you should download it while we're there.
Maybe I should. I could not understand the story, but that's fine, because by the end of Octopath, I was sort of blowing through story cutscenes, so...
It's probably for the best.
Like, some of that, like, I cared about Therian, not because his story was, like, particularly good, but because it was, like, cliched enough that I cared. Like, things were happening. Like, Ophelia's story, by the third chapter, like, nothing was happening. She was not going on a journey of character growth. She was basically just, like, side questing for her main plot. She was like, oh, this child is lost. Let me help this child find his way back to his parents. Oh, hooray! My religion is good. That was Ophelia's storyline.
Nice.
Just was not interesting.
The name of the game always makes me think it's something much more sci-fi-y than it is.
No.
Think about Octopath.
It's very medieval style RPG.
I know, but it's just such an aggressive title.
Yeah, it is pretty aggressive. It really feels like they're like, this was their working title, and they just didn't bother to think of a new one.
They're like, yeah, it's fine.
Like, it's honest. Tells you the truth.
It does sound very grand. It's like Octopath Traveler.
Yeah. But no, it just... I like the characters in theory. I just wish that they had more story to chew on and that they were able to interact. Because, like, I don't know. Like, I kept, like... Whenever Tressa was in my party for Therian's stuff, he was like, I steal because I'm suited to it. And she was like, I see, we're both suited for our professions. Because they have, like, little side conversations during story events that are supposed to, like, I don't know, pretend that they're traveling together. And then we go to Tressa's story, and she would be, like, lecturing pirates about how stealing is bad. But it's different when it's Therian.
He's not a pirate.
Oh, yeah. It's different when I'm going around town stealing from everybody in sight. Okay, you know what? I like the concept of path actions. That was the part of the game design I did really like in Octopath.
Why?
In that each character has, like, their own path action, which is things that they can do on the field map. Like Therian can steal items off of NPCs. Tressa can buy items off of NPCs, which you can do if you're worried about the chance of not succeeding in your theft as Therian. Like Ophelia and Primrose can sort of guide people, which, like, they could summon villagers, basically, like, help them in battle, or, like, they can take someone to another place. Like, Ulbrich and Hanek can challenge people, which, like, if people are standing... This one's a little funny. But if people are standing in front of doors, you can beat them up so that you can go inside the house.
What?
Cyrus and Alphen can, like, learn about people. So they can, like, gain information from talking to people. And stuff like that. So I like that concept of, like, the things that they are can be used as sort of, like, a game mechanic to help you get around the world. And you can, like, consider not only, like, their battle strategies, but who might help you, like, in town, like, just walking around town, who you might want to have in your party. And I feel like that would have been much better integrated if they were actually walking around town together, as opposed to just, like, pretending to walk around town together, because there's no way these people were traveling together.
See, I told you folks there are going to be spicy takes.
It frustrates me so much. I know nobody else in the world is as frustrated with Octopath Traveler as I am, but I am frustrated.
You gotta have a niche, you know?
You gotta have a thing, and Emma's thing is being frustrated with Octopath Traveler. That's my quirky trait.
That should be like, you know how on resumes you're supposed to have, like, the one line that's like, or like on LinkedIn, you're supposed to, like, have the one line, like, description of yourself?
Yeah.
You should be like, Emma Paquette, frustrated by Octopath Traveler.
I really should.
Look, for the kind of jobs you're looking for, it would, like, start a conversation.
That's totally fair, yeah.
Also, like, frustrated with Octopath Traveler, proficient in Microsoft Office.
Yeah, I don't know, like, my favorite part of JRPGs is, like standard JRPGs, is, like, having all these colorful characters in your party who, like, bounce off each other. Right?
Yeah.
So, like, I'm not playing a JRPG really for the story in most cases. Like, generally, I've seen it before in some way. But it's, like, the characters that make that story unique in a certain, like, standard JRPG. So, like, when you take that away from it, why am I playing it? Like, even in the video I did on our YouTube channel, which we can plug soon, I, like, compared it to, like, having skits in the Tales series and stuff. And it's like, Tales is nothing special, right? But they always have relatively fun character interactions. And that's part of what makes Tales still relatively successful enough to keep making Tales games. And it's just like, why would you take away, like, the strongest selling point of this genre? I don't know.
It's for men, Emma.
It's for men. All JRPGs are for men.
Men don't care about story.
That's not true. That's not true.
Good boyfriend is nodding in the kitchen, so confirmed. A good boyfriend who literally, like, weeps over Kingdom Hearts. Like, cries. Genuine tears. Of frustration, not of, like, being moved.
Yeah. But I really sold it here. I'm sure everybody's now really enthusiastic to go out and buy it.
Use our affiliate link.
Hey, Square Enix, you want to give me an affiliate link? I'll give it to people. But we should do our mashup.
So, I think there's a possibility to create a very complex mashup game.
Okay, tell me what it is.
So we still have 8 characters.
Okay.
And we're gonna have to, it's gonna be this, like, interlocking storyline. Like, they have all these paths, but, like, it's constantly changing. Like, you're seeing the same things happen over and over, but because everyone is time traveling, like, it's slightly different each time.
Oh, I see. Like, you have different people with you for different events or something.
Yeah.
Like, are they all, like, time traveling on their own schedule?
Kinda, yeah.
Like,
and so, like, things will change. Like, partway through the story, somebody might, because you like, didn't experience this, right? Someone will have, like, gone back and, like, suddenly it's gonna be really confusing for you, the player, because, like, things that you saw happen in the past, like, they won't have happened anymore. The timeline will have changed.
Mm-hmm. So it's like, spoilers for Buffy. It's like Buffy in season 5.
I don't think I watched Buffy season 5, so thanks for warning me about spoilers.
Well, it's not exactly like Buffy season 5, but it's confusing for the audience because people are remembering things that the audience didn't experience.
Yes.
Okay.
So as the story goes along, it's kind of a mystery for you as the player because, like, all of a sudden your characters will start to remember, like, some battle they fought, and that will not have happened in what you saw because somebody time traveled. I don't know. I'm not quite weaving this right, but
it could be. I like the idea of it. I like the initial concept.
And sometimes you'll get to go back and time travel and see it all happen, but, like, sometimes somebody else will time travel back, and you won't get
Are
to
you
see
all
it until
working
much
towards
later.
the same... Are the characters working towards the same goal, or are they rival time travelers?
Unclear.
Unclear.
Don't find that out until the end.
Okay. Like, do you have, like, a party, and then there's, like, a rival faction of time travelers? Or is there someone in your party who is actually part of the rival faction of time travelers?
Both.
Or is it just one person? Like, do you play as multiple people doing their time travel-ness?
You play as multiple people. It's going to be like this thing where there's chapters, you switch between people, and sometimes you're progressing forward in time, and sometimes you're progressing backward in time, and you're changing things.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you won't get to see the part, like, you'll eventually get to see what happened with that battle that you don't know what anyone's talking about, but maybe it's not until chapter 2.8, because that character went back to change things.
Chapter 2.8.
I didn't pick that on purpose. I meant, like, chapter 2, person 8.
Yes, I understand.
Mean, like, I didn't...
No,
yeah.
I think that adds, like, a little bit more intrigue to it. Like, it keeps that initial thing of, like, 8 people with their own stories, but the things that happen in certain chapters are affecting other people's chapters, which I think is good.
I think it's going to be very confusing for people.
It's abstract. It's expressionist game.
Right.
Design.
It's also only 3 hours long.
Amen.
It's simultaneously 3 hours long and 100 hours long.
No.
Depending on how you play.
No. Yeah, it can be a short game. That's fine.
And ultimately, when you reach the very end, you realize, like, you all finally sort of come together to work together. You realize that what you've been doing has been a mistake the whole time, so everybody has to go back in time to fix it.
And then you play the game again?
Yes, straight through.
Is it like a multiple playthroughs type experience? Like, the New Game Plus is different than the game?
Sure, why not?
That sounds good to me. I like stuff like that.
That seems like a great idea.
It can be a relatively short game that encourages replayability.
But see, then it wouldn't really be, it's not really replayability. It's like you have to play it like 5 times to understand what's going on.
That's replayability.
But then that's the same, I don't agree that this is like a New Game Plus situation. I just think that that's a game where it's like, that's one playthrough.
No, I mean, like, at the end, they realize they've made a mistake and they have to go back, and then your second playthrough is them fixing that mistake, and then you reach the true ending.
Right, but here's what I'm saying, is that that's all one... Like, I think it's misleading to refer to those as 2 separate playthroughs. When they're just halves of a game. I always think this is kind of weird. Like, you talk about it with Nier, too. And it's like, I always think it's kind of weird to refer to that as, like, 3 playthroughs, when it's really all just one game.
Well, I think, especially tying time travel into it, there can be something sort of thematic about, like, pressing new game, right?
Yeah, that's fair. I don't mind it in that sense. I just mean, in our storyboard meetings, we will not be referring to it as New Game Plus.
Fine. Well, it's also like Oxenfree, we've talked about, has some timey-wimey time loop stuff, and its New Game Plus is different than its new game.
Sure.
That's sort of what I was thinking of.
That's sort of what the definition of a New Game Plus is, but...
Well, no, New Game Plus it is not necessarily different plot-wise, you just keep all your stuff. Whereas with Oxenfree, they, like, add scenes and options and things.
Well, man, do I hate time travel in my media, but this sounds like a cool game.
I only hate time travel in my media when they try to explain to me how time travel works. It's like, I literally don't care. The more you try to explain it, the more stupid it sounds. So just say, oh man, look, time travel, neat. and that's all I need.
Yeah. Things will at least change in our game as a result of the time travel, which sometimes helps me buy into it a little more.
Yeah.
Anyway, Switch, Nintendo Switch could
Nintendo
use another
Switch exclusive.
We'll call it 8-strand braid.
There you go. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's a great title.
That can be our working title, and then the day we want to come up with titles, we'll be like, actually, we're just gonna go order some pizza. We're fine with 8-strand braid. 8-strand braid.
No, it'll get missed.
8-strand brain.
ESB.
That sounds like timey-wimey. I don't know. They use the 8 strands in their brain to time travel.
That sounds timey-wimey.
Yeah, that's an adjective.
Yeah, use that in the pitch. Here's our
this
title.
Is a timey-wimey kind of game.
I think the title reflects the timey-wimey nature of the game.
We're going for the timey-wimey nonsense sort of vibe here.
We're hitting a timey-wimey demographic. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in for another episode of Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
I've been and continue to be and am in the past in any time travel, your host, Madelyn.
Same, I'm Emma.
You're Emma. You can't say same.
I meant same to all you said, and then I changed my name.
Oh man, I'm choking because I'm so excited about this game, folks. Tune in next week for another side quest episode of the show where we'll talk about what we've been playing. Boy, do I have some stuff to share. And thoughts on what's going on in the gaming industry, in the off-topic corner, what's been up on the website, all that good stuff on the side quest. Same time, same place, Sundays at noon. In the meantime, if you want to get ready for the traffic report, you should check out our website, www.talkthispodcast.com, where you can see all the latest episodes, check out the blog featuring long-running series, Clickbait Boyfriend, and Watch This, although they've both been on a bit of a hiatus because I'm the worst. And also, while you're there, you can click the links to our social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Talk This Podcast, and on YouTube at Talk This Sisters. You'll find of a special interest on YouTube this week, Emma's Play This video on Octopath Traveler. It's a really good one. It dives into more of the issues that she raised during our episode today from the perspective of gameplay as storytelling. Super great video. You should check it out. Hopefully we'll share it on our social media this week too. If you like the show, you should go find us wherever podcasts are downloaded. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, and everywhere that podcasts are sold for free. So check us out there. And hey, if you're feeling extra cheerful today, leave us a rating and a review. Makes us smile when we're thinking about Octopath Traveler. So, that brings us to the most exciting part of every other week on the podcast, picking the games for the following main episode. So, Emma, what are going to be our old and our new games in 2 weeks?
Why don't we do this the old-fashioned way, and you give me a number, because I don't want to open my random selector.
Great. What out of how many? I don't know how many.
10 out of 10.
10? Okay. 5.
We'll be talking about Deus Ex for our old game.
Nice. And then 1.
And we'll be talking about everything for our new game.
Everything?
That is the title of the game. We will not be talking about everything.
Every game that's ever been created.
No, we're talking about everything the game, not every game. So look forward to that.
I'm looking forward to it.
Good.
Do you want to sign the good people off, Emma?
I hope that this week is a good week over and over and over again.